Welcome to the Skull King Football Podcast, presented by Fox DFS Firelines. Now, here are your hosts, Justin and Ryan Skullroot.
Hey, Skull King Nation. Welcome back to the Skull King Football Podcast. My name is Ryan Skullroot, and I am your host today. And again, we have another great interview in our Inside Analysis series. Today we speak with Mr. Steve Jones, who is the voice of the Penn State Nittany Lions. We talked about wide receiver Chris Godwin. And so, we're going to go ahead and get this started, and I hope you enjoy this conversation Steve and I had. All right, Skull King Nation, we are back with another Inside Analysis interview. Today, I am very pleased to introduce to you the voice of the Penn State Nittany Lions, Mr. Steve Jones. Steve, thanks for coming on the show with us today.
It's great to be with you.
All right, so today we want to talk about the wide receiver out of Penn State who's in the draft, Chris Godwin, who, as far as some of the polls are, I believe on CBS they have him ranked as the number 5 wide receiver in this draft. Very, very highly touted. Steve, if you could just give us a little bit of an overview of the just Chris in general and kind of the season that he had this past year.
Well, he really has developed over the last 3 years. I mean, he came in, he may not have been the most highly touted receiver in his class, but you could tell in the first week to 10 days that he had something to him, and it just built over time. Above all, when I look at Chris Godwin, it's his concentration that sets him apart from so many other guys that I've watched over the years at Penn State. I put Chris Godwin into the same category here as Bobby Ingram, Allen Robinson, and Chris, because Godwin has the ability to make plays going to get the high point of the ball, plays over the middle because his concentration is so good, and the guy has the ability to make the big play at the big moment. And you look at the 3 bowl games that he had, the Pinstripe Bowl, the Tax Slayer Bowl, and the Rose Bowl. Those are his 3 best games against great competition, and that tells you a little bit about Chris Godwin.
All right, let's. I actually recognize the Bobby Ingram reference as a Seattle Seahawks fan my entire life. I actually got to watch him a bit in the 2000s. So I appreciate that. I really appreciate that reference. So
well, Ingram is the best receiver I've ever seen at Penn State, and what made Ingram special and what makes Godwin special is that that's the way they practiced. How you saw them play is actually the way they practice. Some guys, concentration isn't quite there Sunday through Thursday, and all of a sudden game day, and they turn it up. Godwin and Ingram were 2 guys, Ingram especially, that just always practiced the way they played all the time.
All right, well, let's get into a couple of the stats with Chris. He's listed at 6'1", 208 pounds, so he's not, compared to some of the receivers in this class, he's not the biggest, but he's not the smallest either. This past season, 59 receptions, 982 yards, and 11 touchdowns. He didn't have the same, he didn't have the receptions that a lot of the guys that are highly touted in this draft had. You had, Mike Williams of Clemson with 98, John Ross with 81, Corey Davis 97, Curtis Samuel 74, those kind of guys. But it seems like just from watching the tape from the some of the YouTube videos I've seen of highlights of Chris, every single catch that he made of those 59 seemed like it was in a big moment where he made the catch, just at when it needed to be done at any time. Every catch was important.
Well, he always made big catches in his career, but I think when you look at his numbers, there's only one football, and Penn State has other guys. Mike Gesicki, the tight end, had a big year for Penn State. Saeed Blacknall was injured the first half of the season, came back in the second half of the season, and had a career day in the Big Ten championship game. Deshaun Hamilton has been a key guy for 3 years, and you have Saquon Barkley. So Godwin did what he had to do when they needed him to do it, because they have so many other, quote, go-to people in the offense. Godwin was one of the go-to people and not the go-to guy. You watch Washington, for example, and Ross was the go-to guy.
Correct.
You watch Clemson and Deshaun Watson, his default guy was Mike Williams. Here the ball is spread out all over the place in this offense, and I think the fact that Godwin had 59 catches and did make the big catches at the big moments. And I think above all, if I had to one thing above all, if their ball's thrown at the high point at 6-1, he goes up and gets it, and that's a big part of it. And I think the fact that he ran 4.42 in Indianapolis, I think showed everybody there's some speed to go with the concentration.
Yeah, I was going to put in also at the combine. He was one of the top performers with 19 reps on the bench press, which just shows his body mass and his strength. He plays bigger than 6'1". You talked about the jump balls on those 50-50 balls. It seems like anytime he had a jump ball, even at 6'1", he was the one coming down with it. There was no one else. The defender was not going to get the ball.
No question about that. A good example would be the touchdown at the end of the first half of the Ohio State game. That really is the play that really turned around the victory Penn State had over Ohio State. He goes up in the corner, a high point, reels it in, makes a play at a big moment. And there's another part, too, that NFL scouts are going to love. Chris Godwin will throw his body in there, and he'll be a blocker. So he is not just going to be a guy that's going to make catches for you and move the chains. He's also going to be a guy that's going to throw his body in there, and he's going to throw some blocks to spring other people along the way.
Yeah, that's in Seattle, a lot of the wide receivers really for the Seahawks, the wide receivers pride themselves on, like Doug Baldwin, Jermaine Kearse, pride themselves on the fact that they are so used in the blocking game because Seattle's mainly a run first team, and I think that with a lot of offenses, with the amount of running backs coming out and how teams are trying to get back to the running game in a lot of cases, wide receivers who are willing to put their bodies out there and block, I think is only just a major plus when it comes to being drafted.
Oh, no question. And I think you want to look for as many complete players as possible. You don't want to look at it always just at one-trick ponies. Oh, he's really fast but doesn't have great hands. He has great hands, but he's not really fast. You want to get more of a complete player in the NFL, and Godwin's more of a complete player, which I think helps him in terms of his draft status.
Yeah. Again, going back to his kind of body control, especially in traffic, his ability to, like we said on the 50-50 balls, in order to, kind of separate his body from the defender to make sure that he's the only one to come down with the ball, is just amazing. Again, with his size at 6'1", 208. And you talked about his focus off the field when, especially during practice time, how he is focused and intense during practice, not just on game day. He doesn't just ramp it up then. He keeps it all the way through. And I think that shows especially in a lot of the catches that he made in some of the highlights that I've seen. The tip ball, I want to say it was against Iowa, where the defender managed to tip the ball. He still had the concentration to come down with that catch, or even take the 70-yard TD that he caught in the Rose Bowl, where it looked like the defender had completely knocked it away, and he had the focus and the sense of mind to keep the awareness to catch the ball and then take off when the defender fell down.
Well, that shows two things. Let's take the Rose Bowl play. Well, the Iowa play is really the same kind of play, too, where the ball is deflected and your concentration. Everyone talks about concentration, but there's another element too: how quickly you adjust as you concentrate on the ball. And that's what Godwin's able to do. His reflexes are great because he's able to adjust on a tip ball right away and is able to reel it in and then make a play out of it. And if you notice, for example, in the USC game, once he caught it, nobody ever caught him.
Correct.
And that's something that I think a lot of people like to see. You want to see something that once he gets rolling in pads, he's got a breakaway gear that other people can't catch up to, and that's what he has. But the concentration part, there was a play he made in the Tax Slayer Bowl, it's a 50-yard play against Georgia, over the middle, went through a maze of hands. He catches it and keeps on going because he is just able to lock in on the ball. And not only that, here's the next part. He's not a body catcher. He always catches the ball out in front of him. Some guys are body catchers, and that becomes, as you and I both know, that becomes somewhat of an issue over time because, to me, body catchers end up playing the football. I think Godwin almost always catches the ball out in front, which means he's not fighting the ball.
Yeah, one of the other prospects that I've done an interview about is Zay Jones, and he's very much the same way. His hands are always out in front, and I've noticed that in Chris Godwin's tape. His hands are out in front. He catches the ball out in front of him. He doesn't let the ball get into him, which could cause drops and that sort of thing. He really has a great focus, and he's able to use his hands very, very well to catch the ball. Honestly, Chris's tape is very, very impressive. And again, we talked about the 4.4 speed, and his ability to use his 6'1" frame on 50-50 balls. I'm really excited to see where he could end up in this draft and who and what team is going to draft him. I think it could be really exciting to see what he could do in the NFL.
Well, I think this is really a very good wide receiver draft. I mean, after the time Ross turned in, which was great. Williams is not a burner, but Williams is a guy that runs great routes and makes plays for you. You get a guy like Godwin, for example, that gets out there and is the kind of guy that I think, if he stays healthy, is one of those 8 to 12-year guys in the NFL that just keeps making plays, and quarterbacks love to work with because that's the kind of guy that's going to send everybody's percentage up higher as they go along and can make plays for you. So I think Godwin, if he stays healthy, is one of those 8 to 12-year guys in the league.
Yeah, I kind of see him. I can almost kind of see him being sort of like a Doug Baldwin type in style that can go down and make the deep play, can do a lot of crossing routes. Is willing to in essence kind of sacrifice his body to make that catch. And to be the secure hands, because really Baldwin is that secure guy for Russell Wilson. He trusts him to make the catch all the time, and I can see Chris developing into that kind of a wide receiver for a quarterback, going into the league.
Well, I think you just brought up the biggest word of all, Ryan. That's trust. I think it's coaches play people that they trust. Quarterbacks in key moments throw the ball to people they trust. Now, on the collegiate level, Godwin is a guy that developed trust with everybody right away. Now he has to translate that into the next level.
Yeah.
But normally you see guys that can catch the ball at this level, can do it at the next level. There's certain things that translate over regardless of the level. In college, in basketball, if you can rebound in college, believe me, you can rebound in the pros. Well, if you can catch the ball in college, you can catch the ball in the pros.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm really excited to see where Chris goes. It's been really fun watching his tape and kind of breaking him down. One quick thing that I really didn't talk about, just in terms of his routes, because a lot of the highlights, that I can find are going to be like, his deep balls, like the one against USC. But in terms of his routes, a lot of that kind of gets missed on the game tape because it's from, say ESPN, where you don't get to see where he's making his cuts. And just if you could kind of give a little bit of perspective on kind of the types of routes that he runs.
Well, he can run them all, and not only that, he's very precise when he runs his routes. You and I both know that the worst kind of receiver is the one that rounds routes, because
Correct.
it's very easy to cover when they round a route. Well, what really helps Godwin is that he's very precise. You want him to go 7 and cut, he'll go 7, and he'll put that foot in the ground and he'll just cut, and he quickly gets out of the break. So that's where he creates a little bit of separation for himself, because he is precise in running routes, and he is the kind of guy that will plant that foot and break out of the route and do it quickly. So that helps him, and he can run obviously a variety of them along the way, which helps him. And he's not afraid to go over the middle. And when you're a guy that does not round routes and you go over the middle, a lot of people are going to love that because he doesn't mind taking contact.
Yeah, again, I watched a couple of his plays. He's willing to fight for that extra yard. I've seen a couple where he has the body control to be able to tiptoe and work his, and fall out of bounds. But at the same time, he's able to also collect his body if he needs to, and drop the shoulder, and instead of stepping out of bounds, drop the shoulder into that corner and try to get an extra 2 or 3 yards. So again, like you said, he's willing to use his body. He has great body control, and he's got that tenacity that's willing to fight for the extra yard, or in the run game willing to throw his body out there and block as well. So,
Right.
So yeah, I I really like what I'm seeing from Chris, and I can't wait to see where he goes. Again, this has been our conversation with Steve Jones, the voice of the Penn State Nittany Lions. Again, Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I really look forward to maybe doing this again with if you got some players that are coming out next year.
Absolute pleasure. Enjoyed it very much.
All right, thank you, Steve, and I look forward to talking again later.
Hey, no problem. Thanks, Ryan.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Bye. Hey, Skull King Nation, thank you for listening to the Skull King Football Podcast. Did you like this episode? If so, be sure to go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube to subscribe. Also, please leave us a rating and reviews to let us know how we can better help you rule your leagues.